2 weeks before my wedding, my father sat me down at the kitchen table where I had eaten 30 years of Sunday dinners and told me, with the calm authority of a man who has never once been wrong, in his own estimation, that he and my mother would not be attending. "She'll ruin your life," he said. "You're 42 years old, and you're about to throw everything away on a woman with someone else's baggage." He used that word, baggage, to describe a 6-year-old girl named Rosie who had just started first grade, who was missing her 2 front teeth, who carried a stuffed elephant named Gerald everywhere she went, and who had, 3 weeks prior, asked me very seriously whether I thought her late father would be okay with her calling me by my first name or whether she should wait. I told my father what I thought of that assessment. He told me I was making an emotional decision. My mother sat at the end of the table and did not disagree with him. She looked at the tablecloth instead, which was for my mother a form of participation. I drove home. I called my fiancée. I told her everything. There was a silence on the line, the particular silence of a woman who has been bracing for something and has just been confirmed in that preparation. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "I want to get married," I said. "Are you still in?" "Jonathan, I've been in." We got married on February 15th, 2025, at Zilker Botanical Garden in Austin, Texas. 74 guests. No church, no performance, no pastor making pronouncements about what God required of us from a stage. My parents were not there. Rosie, age 6, walked down the aisle ahead of her mother wearing a purple dress and white Mary Janes holding a handmade sign in purple marker on white poster board. A guest filmed it on her phone. Within 48 hours, 11 million people had seen what that sign said. Before I tell you what was written on it, let me tell you how we got there. My name is Jonathan Nolan, 42 years old. General contractor in Austin, Texas, residential construction, custom homes renovations in the Hill Country corridor west of the city. I started Nolan Construction in 2012. 12 employees. We build things that last. My father, Richard Nolan, spent 30 years as a civil engineer with the Texas Department of Transportation. Methodical. Precise. A man who built his life on load-bearing calculations and had never in living memory made a decision he later revised. My mother, Patricia, taught 4th grade for 26 years in Round Rock. Warm, reliably kind, and almost completely unable to hold a position that contradicted my father's. They were not bad people. They had decided that the life they built, respectable, orderly, conventional, was not just good but was the only legitimate template. Anything that deviated was a risk to be managed. I had married once before, a woman named Linda, in 2008. 4 years, no children, no dramatic ending. Just 2 people who had chosen each other at 25 and grown into different people by 30. My parents had welcomed Linda. She fit their template. The woman I met in spring 2023 did not fit their template. She fit everything else. Her name is Sarah Calloway, 38 years old. Physical therapist at St. David's Medical Center on 32nd Street in Austin. She is organized, dry, funny in the way that people who deal with pain professionally develop humor, as a tool rather than a performance. She grew up in Dallas, moved to Austin for school, stayed because Austin is the kind of city that makes staying feel like the obvious choice. Rosie's father, Sarah's ex-partner, a man named Marcus, died in a construction accident in March 2020, when Rosie was 14 months old. He was working a commercial site off North Lamar. Scaffolding failure. He was 29. They had not been married, but they had been building toward it, in the way that some couples do, slowly, with intention, without rushing the paperwork. Sarah had raised Rosie alone for 3 years before I came into the picture, not reluctantly, not with bitterness, with the focused, purposeful love of a woman who had decided that grief was not going to organize her life, that she was going to make the choices that were right for her daughter and trust that everything else would follow. I met her at a neighborhood block association meeting in the Bolden Creek neighborhood in April 2023. Folding chairs. Someone's bad coffee. A debate about repainting the median strip on our street. I had bought a house on Bonnie Road 2 years prior. A 1960s bungalow I had been renovating myself. Sarah had moved in 3 doors down with Rosie 6 months before the meeting. She was sitting 2 seats to my left, arguing very calmly, with the precision of a physical therapist, that the proposed traffic calming measure was structurally sound and the concerns being raised were not supported by the data. The man across from her was getting increasingly flustered. She was not raising her voice. She was simply continuing to be right. After the meeting, I introduced myself. She told me she'd noticed the work I was doing on the bungalow. I asked if she'd noticed it in a critical way or a curious way. She said she hadn't decided yet. We had coffee that Saturday. By the end of summer 2023, I was spending most of my free time on Bonnie Road. Not because I planned it that way, because it was where the people I liked were. Sarah, Rosie, Gerald, the elephant. A small ecosystem of warmth that was, without my fully registering it, reshaping what I wanted my life to look like. Rosie was 5 the first summer we spent together. She was the kind of child who asks 3 questions to every one answer you give her and has the attention span of a PhD candidate when the subject interests her. She wanted to know how my tools worked. She wanted to know why I measured things twice. She wanted to know if walls could be moved and if floors could be different colors, and whether the ceiling in her room could have stars on it. I put stars on her ceiling. Glow-in-the-dark adhesive constellations, Orion, the Big Dipper, Cassiopeia, with a paper key taped to the inside of her closet door so she could learn which was which. She told me, very seriously, that this was the best thing anyone had ever done for a ceiling. I brought Sarah and Rosie to my parents' house for Thanksgiving 2023. My father shook Sarah's hand and asked polite questions about her work. My mother bent down and spoke to Rosie with the practiced warmth of a former teacher. The meal was fine. The conversation was fine. Nobody said anything wrong, but I had known my parents for 42 years, and I could read the temperature of a room they were managing. Something was being filed for later. The filing came out the following February 2024. I had decided, with the clarity that comes from a year of paying attention to what actually matters, that I wanted to marry Sarah Calloway. I called my father first, not because I needed his approval, but because I still, in some residual part of myself that I had not yet fully updated, believed that sharing important things with your parents was what you did. We have some concerns, my father said. Okay, I said. What are they? He took me through them methodically, the way he listed variables in a load calculation. Rosie was not my child. I would be taking on a responsibility that wasn't mine. The child's father had died. Tragic, but it meant there were grief complications, psychological considerations, unpredictable variables in the child's development. Sarah had not been married to Rosie's father. That said something about how she approached commitment. And here it was. What about my own legacy? My own family? I was 42. If I committed to this relationship, I was likely foreclosing on having biological children of my own. I listened to all of it. When he finished, I said, I'm going to ask her to marry me. A pause. Jonathan, I'm asking you to think about this. I have been, I said. For a year. I'm done thinking. I'm ready to decide on a Friday evening in March 2024 in the backyard of the Bonnie Road house. Rosie was in bed. The lights were on in the kitchen. I had a ring. A simple diamond solitaire in a white gold setting. The kind of ring that does not need decoration because the thing itself is enough. Sarah said yes before I finished the sentence. From the house, through the open window, we heard a small voice. Did she say yes? Rosie had been listening from her bedroom window. She said yes. I called up. Yes! A thump on the floor that meant she had jumped off the bed. I did not know it yet, but that small voice through the window was the beginning of everything my parents were going to try to stop. The formal rejection came on February 1st, 2025. 14 days before the wedding. I had driven to my parents' house in Round Rock, a 40-minute drive north of Austin, on I-35 that I had made hundreds of times without thinking. This time I was aware of every mile. My father was at the kitchen table when I arrived. My mother brought coffee and sat at the far end, away from the conversation, which was her way of being present without being responsible for the outcome. I had seen her do this my entire life. She was a kind woman who had spent 40 years in proximity to a man who was very certain about things and had never fully developed the skill of disagreeing with him. My father spoke for about 12 minutes. He laid out his position the way he laid out everything, methodically, without drama, with the implicit confidence of a man who believed that clarity of argument was sufficient justification for any conclusion. He would not be attending the wedding. My mother would not be attending the wedding. They loved me. They wished me no harm, but they could not, in good conscience, support a decision they believed was a mistake. Sarah was a single mother. Rosie was not my child. The complications were significant. The risks were real. And they did not want to stand in a room and smile for photographs at an event they did not believe in. "She'll ruin your life," he said, not with anger, with the calm certainty of a man delivering a structural assessment. "You're throwing away your future on someone else's burden." I sat at the table for a moment after he finished. "Rosie is 6 years old," I said. "She lost her father when she was 14 months old. She calls me by my first name because she asked me very carefully what I was comfortable with and wanted to make sure I was okay before she decided. That is not a burden, that's a child. And the woman raising her is the most decent person I have ever known." My father looked at me with the expression he uses when he believes an argument has been made emotionally rather than logically. "I hope it works out," he said. "I genuinely do. But we won't be there." I stood up. I did not raise my voice. I had learned from a lifetime of watching my father deliver difficult information calmly how to do the same thing. "I know," I said. "I'm sorry you feel that way. I'll see you when you're ready." I drove back to Austin. I called Sarah from the road. "They're not coming." A pause. "Are you okay?" I thought about it. I'm clearer than I was this morning. "That counts," she said. It did. Zilker Botanical Garden sits at the southern edge of Barton Springs Road in Austin, along the north bank of Barton Creek. It is 26 acres of cultivated garden, rose gardens, a Japanese garden, a butterfly trail, great live oaks that have been rooted there for 100 years. It is one of those Austin places that has remained itself despite everything the city has become around it. We chose it because Sarah had taken Rosie there on Saturday mornings since she was a toddler. It was their place before it was ours. That mattered to us, that the location had a history with the people it was for. 74 guests. No elevated platform, no microphone, just chairs in the rose garden, white folding chairs in a curved arc, with the February light coming through the live oaks in the way it does in Austin in winter. Warm and low and gold even on a cool afternoon. Our friend Christine, a photographer and the kind of person who documents things because she believes they matter, sat in the third row. She had her phone out. Not professionally, just personally. She was a guest who happened to have a good eye. That decision would matter. Rosie walked down the aisle first. She had made the sign herself, the Thursday before the wedding, at the kitchen table on Bonnie Road. Purple marker on white poster board, in the capital letters of a child who has recently learned how to make them carefully. Sarah had been at work. It had been me and Rosie and Gerald the elephant, and she had asked me, with the seriousness she brought to important projects, "Can I make something to carry? For the wedding?" I told her yes. I told her it was her job. I told her she could make it say whatever she thought it should say. She worked on it for 40 minutes. She wouldn't show me the finished product. "It's a surprise," she said, "for everyone." On February 15th, Rosie walked out of the garden's stone entry path in her purple dress. Gerald the elephant tucked under one arm, the poster board sign held flat against her chest with both hands, so nobody could see it until she was ready. She had decided this herself. The strategic reveal. I had not coached her. She walked slowly, the way children walk when they are carrying something they consider important. Not performing, just present, the way children are present when they have decided something matters. Halfway down the aisle, she stopped. She turned the sign around. It read, "He chose us. That's what dads do." Purple marker, capital letters, a small heart drawn in the lower right corner. The room went completely silent. Then someone in the third row made a sound, not crying exactly, the sound that comes before crying, when the body has understood something before the mind has caught up. Then the person beside them. Then a ripple of it, moving through 74 people like a wave through a still pool. Christine's phone was already up. Rosie looked around at the crying adults with the mild curiosity of a child who is pleased. The surprise landed well, but slightly puzzled by the intensity of the reaction. She turned back around. Kept walking. I didn't know yet that in 48 hours 11 million people would see what she had written. And I didn't know yet what would happen when my father saw it. If you've been listening for a while and want accounts like this to keep coming, it really helps if you hit that like button and subscribe. 97% of people never do, but it's what keeps this whole thing running. So, thank you. Christine posted the video Saturday night. Not as a statement, not as a campaign. As the thing it was, a moment at a wedding that had moved her, shared to her personal Instagram with a caption that said, "This little girl walked down the aisle today, and I've been crying for 4 hours. Congratulations, Jonathan and Sarah." She tagged me. She tagged Sarah. She did not tag my parents, who were not on her Instagram, who did not know Christine, who were at home in Round Rock on a Saturday evening that had nothing to do with any of this. By Sunday morning, the video had been shared 40,000 times. By Sunday evening, it was past 1 million. By Monday afternoon, 48 hours after Christine pressed post, it had crossed 11 million views across Instagram, TikTok, and the Facebook re-uploads that nobody had authorized, but which spread the way things spread when the internet has collectively decided something is true and important. The comment sections were, and I use this word carefully, overwhelming. Not in the negative sense. In the sense of volume and sincerity and the particular emotion that people express when something touches them in a place they weren't expecting to be touched. I'm a single mom, and I've been told the same things this man was probably told. This destroyed me in the best way. He chose us. That's what dads do. I'm sending this to my husband who adopted my daughter last year. The way she stopped and turned the sign around. She planned that herself. A 6-year-old planned that herself. I need to call my dad. My phone became inaccessible by Sunday afternoon. I handed it to Sarah. She handled it, the way she handles most things, with methodical calm, acknowledging what mattered and letting the rest pass. My father called on Monday, not to congratulate me, to understand what had happened, with the engineering instinct of a man who needs to model a system before he can respond to it. "There's a video," he said. "I know," I said. "Of the wedding." "Yes, of the little girl. Her name is Rosie," I said. "She's been Rosie this whole time, Dad." A longer pause. "What does it say?" he said. "The sign. You can watch the video," I said. "It's not hard to find." He watched it. I know this because my mother called me 40 minutes later, and she was crying, not the managed, controlled version of emotion my family typically permitted in conversation. Actually, crying. "Jonathan." Her voice was different, the teacher voice she'd spent 26 years using. Warm, patient, calibrated, had dropped away into something more fundamental underneath it. "I should have been there." "Yes," I said, "you should have." "Your father?" "Mom, I'm not asking you to manage him. I'm just telling you the truth. You should have been there. And Rosie deserved to have the family she was walking toward be present for it. All of it." A silence. "She said that's what dads do," my mother said, very quietly. "She did," I said. "She decided that herself." My mother cried for another moment. Then she collected herself with the discipline of a woman who has spent her whole adult life managing visible emotion. "Can I meet her?" she asked. "When you're ready." "When you're ready," I said. "Call me." My father took longer. He called 3 weeks after the wedding. A Tuesday evening. He had watched the video. He had read what people were saying, not because he sought it out, but because people in his professional circle and his neighborhood and his church had sent it to him. 11 million views has a way of finding the people who need to be found. He did not apologize the way a man apologizes in a movie, cleanly, all at once, with the full admission loaded into a single sentence. He apologized the way a man apologizes when he has been built a certain way for 67 years and is being asked to revise a foundational assumption. He said, "I was wrong about Sarah. I don't know her well enough to have said what I said." "No," I agreed. "You didn't? And the girl?" He paused. "Rosie?" "Yes. I'd like to meet her." A pause. "If that's something that could happen." I told him I'd talk to Sarah. He said he understood. I told Sarah that evening. She was quiet for a moment, the kind of quiet that contains significant processing. "What do you want to do?" I asked. I want to let Rosie decide, she said. So we asked Rosie. We sat with her at the kitchen table, her homework spread out, Gerald the elephant on the chair beside her, and told her simply that Jonathan's mom and dad would like to meet her if she wanted to, but only if she wanted to. And there was no wrong answer. She thought about it for the full minute of seriousness she brings to important questions. Did they see my sign? Yes, I said. Did they like it? I think it made them think about some things. She considered this. Okay, she said. They can come for dinner, but they have to be nice. That's the requirement, Sarah said. Absolutely. Rosie went back to her homework. My parents came for dinner on a Saturday in March 2025. My mother brought a small gift, a children's book she had used in her classroom for years, about a dog who finds a family. She bent down at the door and handed it to Rosie directly, not performing warmth, just offering it. Rosie took it, looked at the cover, looked at my mother. Did you used to be a teacher? For 26 years, my mother said. That's a lot of kids, Rosie said. It is, my mother said. You're the one I brought a book to, though. Rosie thought about this. Then she took my mother's hand and led her to the living room to see the star constellations on the paper key taped inside the closet door. My father shook my hand at the door. He looked older than he had in February. Not physically older, something more interior. The sign is real, he said. Looking at me. She made it herself, I said. I didn't see it until she turned it around. He nodded slowly, the nod of a man doing the work of revising a calculation. We had dinner. Rosie talked about her class's birdwatching project and about a library book she'd read in 2 days, and about whether Gerald the elephant would count as a stuffed animal or a toy if someone did a study on it. My father listened to all of this with the careful attention of a man learning a language he didn't previously speak. At the end of dinner, Rosie asked him if he knew how to play Go Fish. I haven't played in many years, he said. That's okay, she said. I'll remind you. They played Go Fish for 40 minutes at the kitchen table. I made coffee. Sarah washed dishes. The sound of a 6-year-old patiently explaining card game rules to a 67-year-old man came from the next room. It was not resolution. It was not the erasure of February. It was something more modest and therefore more real. 2 people beginning to figure out how to be in the same room. That is where we are. The sign hangs in our living room now. Sarah had it professionally framed. White wood, behind glass, the purple letters still bright. He chose us. That's what dads do. Beside it, a photograph from the wedding. Rosie mid-aisle, sign turned, looking back over her shoulder at the camera with the expression of someone who has just pulled off something they planned carefully and is pleased it worked. Below both, a small wooden plaque with a line from Isaiah, and a little child shall lead them. Rosie asks to take the sign to school for show and tell. We let her. She tells the story with the calm authority of someone who was there and knows exactly what happened. I made the sign, she tells her class. Jonathan didn't know what it said until I turned it around. It was a surprise. Her teacher told Sarah that 3 kids in the class had gone home and told their parents they wanted to make a sign for someone they loved. Here is what I know now that I did not know on February 15, 2025. The people who argue loudest about family and legacy are often the ones who have reduced those things to a template, a set of visible markers that signal the right kind of life to the right kind of audience. My father spent 40 years building things structurally sound and extended that engineering philosophy to people. Every variable assessed, every deviation treated as a structural threat. What he could not calculate was a 6-year-old with a purple marker making a decision at a kitchen table on a Thursday afternoon that no one asked her to make. He chose us. That's what dads do. She wrote that because she believed it. Not because she'd been coached, because at 6 years old she had observed something true and named it. Jonathan showed up. That was the whole analysis. 11 million people recognized that conclusion because it was the one they had been waiting to see stated simply by someone with nothing to gain from it except the truth. My parents missed the moment, not because something happened to them, because they chose to be in a different room. I don't carry that bitterness. I carry the photograph instead. Rosie is 7 now. She still has all the star constellations memorized. She still has Gerald. She calls me Dad. Not Jonathan. Not carefully. The easy way. The automatic way. The way children call people what they are. I chose them. That's what dads do. She was right. She usually is. If you liked this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more family-centered accounts like this.